Hi everyone, we are now on our second week of general mathematics lesson. So the topic starts with rational functions. For this week, you're going to do the following, which are page 129 independent practice 1, page 171 activity 1, which is number 1 only, page 174 activity 2, pages 230 to 231, which is what I can do, and pages 232 to 233, an assessment. So the first topic of rational function is all about representing real-life situations using rational functions. Okay, let us define first a rational function. A rational function, which is given by the symbol or notation r of x, so we read that as r of x, is a function of the form r of x is equal to p of x all over q of x. And take note that p of x and q of x should be polynomial functions, and q of x must not be equal to 0. And that means the domain of r of x, so the domain or the x values or the values of x, is a set of real numbers such that q of x is not equal to 0. So these are the following examples of rational functions. Number 1, r of x is equal to x cubed minus 1 all over x plus 1, where x is not equal to negative 1. So take note, both numerator and denominator are polynomial functions. Denominator has restriction because it should not be equal to 0. So that means if you substitute negative 1 here to the x plus 1 in the denominator, it will become 0. So that's why negative 1 is the restriction. Okay, let's have number 2 example. F of x is equal to 1 over x, wherein x is not equal to 0. So the numerator 1 is a polynomial function, and take note because the degree is 0. The denominator is a polynomial function and it must not be equal to 0. So number 2 is also an example of a rational function. Okay, now let us take a look in this example of a real-life situation involving rational function. So the local government unit allotted a budget of 100,000 pesos for the feeding program in the daycare center. The amount will be divided equally to all the pupils in the daycare center. You have to write an equation showing the relationship of the allotted amount per pupil represented by f of x versus the total number of children represented by x. So let's show the relationship in tabular form. So number of children, it can be 10, 20, 50, 100, 200, and so on, 300, 400. It depends on the daycare center. Allotted amount per child is 10,000 if there are 10 children. How did we get the 10,000? So take note that the total budget is 100,000 pesos. So we divide it by 10, you'll arrive at 10,000. So for the second column, we'll have 100,000 pesos divided by 20, you'll get 5,000. And then 100,000 divided by 50, that will be 2,000. And then 100,000 divided by 100, 1,000, 100,000 divided by 200, that's going to be 500. So notice that as the number of children increase, the amount allotted per child decrease. So habang dumadami yung yung naghahati dun sa amount, lumiliit yung amount ng bawat tao or bawat batang makakatanggap ng amount per child. So, in writing the expression, we will arrive at f of x. So, yung f of x represented by f of x versus. So, gagamitin natin yung doon sa situation. Is equal to 100,000 divided by x. So, x refers to the number of children. Okay? So, if you have questions, clarifications, you may just simply send a private message to Ma'am Lala. Now, for your activity, first activity in week 2 is all about this problem, which is independent practice 1, which is on page 129. School is cool. Okay, so it's almost the same problem that I have discussed a while ago. Now, the second is all about rational functions, rational equations, and rational inequalities. So this is the second lesson about rational function. In this slide, you'll see the difference between rational equation, rational inequality, and rational function. So, by definition, rational equation is an equation involving rational expression. If you will look at the example, diba, x plus 4 all over x minus 1 equals 1 over 5. So, gumagamit ng symbol na equal. Now, for rational inequality, this is an inequality involving rational expression. So, yung rational expression, yun yung parang fractional algebraic expressions. Naka-fraction siya. Okay. Now, dahil dito sa rational inequality naman, gumagamit naman siya ng greater than, less than symbol. So, pwedeng greater than ang symbol na gamitin, pwede ring less than. Okay? Pwede ring greater than or equal or less than or equal. So, kapag may nakita ka mga symbol na ganyan, ibig sabihin po, ito po ay rational inequality as long as it involves rational expression. Okay? Now, let's take a look at the definition of a rational function. For a rational function of the form, so if there is a form, so as I have mentioned about the lesson about function, when we talk about function, lagi tayong gumagamit ng symbol na f of x, r of x, so it's a notation, which is equal to p of x over q of x. And then, take note that q of x is not the zero function. Example, f of x equals x squared plus 6x plus 8 all over x plus 4. So, pwede rin nating maging example is h of x equals x minus 1 minus 1 over 2. Okay, that's another example of a rational function. Okay, now let's move on. This time, we're going to solve rational equations and inequalities. So, take note that rational functions, we only represent them. We use the tabular form. We can use graphs in representing rational function. But we are going to solve now the rational equations and inequalities. So, here are the steps to solve a rational equation. The first one is to find the common denominator, multiply everything by the common denominator, and then simplify. So it's like combine all the similar terms, then perform the correct operations when you simplify. Then check the answers to make sure there isn't an extraneous solution or there is a solution na hindi part noong given rational equation. Now, for the rational inequalities, to solve the rational inequalities, first we write the inequality with 0 on one side, locate the x values for which the rational expression is 0 or undefined, mark the numbers on a number line, select a test point within the interior of each interval. So let's have the following examples. Okay, so this example is taken from your module. So sabi dito, solve example 2 of the rational equation by following the given steps. So itong example 2, pwede nyo itong gawin. So sa mga nakapanood ng video na to, pwede nyo bang ipakita sa akin ang inyong sagot? Comment down your name, your section sa YouTube, dito sa post ko sa YouTube channel for this example 2. And you'll get a bonus point for your activities. Okay, try nyo lang gawin. Now, let's discuss. The given is x minus 3 all over x squared minus 25 plus 1 over x plus 5 is equal to 1 over x minus 5. As you can see, these are rational expressions. Okay? Okay, these are rational expressions. Now, we will get the least common denominator. So, we have three denominators here. X squared minus 25, x plus 5, at saka x minus 5. So, if you will factor out x squared minus 25, ang kalalabasan lang din yan ay x plus 5 times x minus 5. Or the other way around, if you're going to multiply x plus 5, this one, x plus 5, and x minus 5, you'll get x squared minus 25. Take note, these are the sum and difference of two terms. Okay, so multiply. You can use the FOIL method kung gusto nyong gamitin since these are two binomials. Okay, now, the least common denominator now is the x plus 5, the quantity x plus 5, times the quantity x minus 5. So, ang next yung gagawin, i-multiply nyo siya both sides. So, ito na siya. Multiplying both sides. So, i-multiply mo rin siya dito. So, kapag i-multiply mo to dito, sisimplify na natin. Apply natin yung distributive property and then simplify. And then, this one, makakancel yan. So, ano na lang maiiwan? Yung x minus 3 plus yung x minus 5. Kasi from here, from this expression, makakancel naman yung x plus 5, ang maiiwan yung x minus 5. Is equal to 1 times, ano naman yung maiiwan dito? Since x minus 5 ang nasa denominator, yung x plus 5. Then we simplify. X minus 3 plus x minus 5 equals x plus 5. Then we simplify, combine similar terms. X, diba? Itong x plus x, that will give you 2x. Then you have negative 3 and negative 5, that is negative 8. And that is equal to, copy x plus 5. Then we use the transposition. Okay? The x here will be transferred to this side. So this will become 2x minus x is equal to, negative 8 will be transposed. So positive 8 plus 5, then x equal 13. So our answer here is x equals 13. Find all the possible values of x. So that means the possible value of x is x equals 13. So checking that 13, isa-substitute niya siya dun sa given rational equation. So kapag nag-equal yung both sides, so that means there's no extraneous root. Okay. So I will leave you this example too. So if you have answers, you can tell me what's the possible value of x. So just comment down your name, your section, and your answer for the possible value of x. Okay, now let's have an example about solving rational inequality. So in this example, that is 3 over x minus 2 is less than or equal to negative 1. So we're using the less than or equal symbol. Definitely this is a rational inequality. So the first step, let's just follow the step, is make the right side equal to 0. Okay, yun lang yung simpleng step ng number 1. So less than or equal to 0. So yung negative 1, matatranspose siya dito, magiging positive 1 less than or equal to 0. So tinranspose si negative 1 here and sa left side, naging positive 1. Then from that, we get the LCD. So it's like 1 over 1. So parang 1 over 1 yan. And then that means the LCD is x minus 2 and 1. So you write the x minus 2 there. So how do we get the numerator? X minus 2 divided by x minus 2 is 1 times 3 is 3. Then plus, we write the plus sign here. X minus 2 divided by 1 is x minus 2 times 1. So that's why 1 times x minus 2. So pag sinimplify mo ito, this will become 3 plus x minus 2. Okay? This one, itong part na to, numerator. Kaya pagdating dito, naging x plus 1 na lang siya. You have x here. Then 3 minus 2, positive 1. Kinumbine natin yung constant na 3 and negative 2. Then all over x minus 2 is less than or equal to 0. Okay, now, naging single rational expression na siya. So, let's move on to the next step. So, number 3 step, set the numerator and denominator equal to 0 and solve the values you get are called critical values. So, di ba, ang numerator niya is x plus 1, equate mo lang siya sa 0, then solve for x equals negative 1. Then, from the denominator, x minus 2 equals 0, which is x equals 2. So, plot the critical values on a number line, breaking the number line into 2 intervals. So, gagawa kayo ng line, 2 lines. Okay? And then, ilalagay niyo yung negative 1 and positive 2. So, negative 1, we all know that between negative 1 and positive 2, we have 0 and positive 1. So, sa iba, pwede nyo hindi nyo na ito isulat yung 0 and 1. Only negative 1 and 2, okay na po yun. Okay. Now, this is negative 1 and positive 2. Substitute the critical values to the inequality to determine if the endpoints of the intervals in the solution should be included or not. So, isa-substitute lang natin yon. 3 over x minus 2 is less than or equal to negative 1. So, kapag x is negative 1, so 3 over negative 1 minus 2 is less than or equal to negative 1. Diba? Marunong naman tayo mag-substitute. It's like evaluating the function. Then 3 over negative 3, negative 1 is less than or equal to negative 1. So, that's correct. Diba? Kasi equal, may equal sign dyan. Pero kung wala yung equal sign yan, wrong yung kakalabasan. So, x equals negative 1 is included in the solution. Let's try x equals 2. 3 over 2 minus 2. So, 3 over 0, na kaagad yun, magkakaroon ka ng 0 denominator. That is undefined. So, x is equal to 2 is not included in the solution. Diba? Ganun lang kasimple. Medyo mahaba ang step, pero madali lang namang sundin yung pagsosolve or yung solution. Okay, now, select test values in each interval and substitute those values into the inequality. So, dito sa negative 1 and positive 2, sabi niya, select test value in each interval and substitute. So, kukuha tayo yung nasa left side ng negative 1. Ano-ano yung mga numbers sa left side ng negative 1? So, meron ka ditong negative 2, di ba? Negative 3, and so on. Dito naman, meron kang positive 3, positive 4, and so on. Okay? Pag tinuloy-tuloy mo yan. Okay, so let's try negative 2. Bakit ba natin palalakihin yung value? Let's just use the smaller value. So, 3 over negative 2 minus 2, substitute lang rin ulit po dun sa ating inequality, less than or equal to negative 1. So, 3 over negative 4 is less than or equal to negative 1. That is false. So, kasi mas malaki yung value na yon. Okay, greater than. Kasi pag titingnan nyo yung 3 over negative 4, that's negative 3/4, nandito siya. Okay, sa between siya ng 0 and negative 1. So, mas malaki yung value. Now, let's take naman yung nandito sa gitna. Okay, yung mga value sa gitna. So, ang kukunin nyo ay left, gitna, at right side nung given na critical values. Ay na nakuha natin critical values. So, x equals 0. So, 0 ang try natin dito. So, 3 over 0, negative 2, 3 over negative 2, less than or equal to negative 1. So, ang 3 over negative 2 is like negative 1.5. So, nandito naman siya sa part na to, sa number line. So, that's true. Then, when x equals 3, substitute nyo lang, 3 over 3 minus 2, 3 is less than or equal to negative 1, that's false. So, now we're going to write our solution. We use the interval notation or set notation to write the final answer. So, this one, -1 and 2. So, this is a bracket, -1, then 2. Okay? So, bakit bracket ang ginamit natin dito? Okay? Kasi part siya ng solution. Ito, kapag ganito naman, ibig sabihin hindi siya part ng solution yung nandun 2 pataas. Okay? That's it for our example about solving rational inequality. So again, yung example 2, try to answer it. You may comment down your answer dun sa aking YouTube channel dito sa video na to. Don't forget your name, your section. It's just an option lang naman sa inyo. So up to you kung gusto nyong sagutan or hindi. Thank you and let's proceed. So this will be your another activity. Okay, nandyan sa inyong module. So meron ng given dyan na sagot, gagawin nyo na lang yung parang solution niya. And then check if this is correct. Okay? So, same ito nung example na diniscuss ko. Then, another activity, what did the Bible verses dyan? So, yung lesson about equation and solving rational equation inequality, apply natin. And then, answer the following. Letters only. Okay? So, may mabubuo dyang phrase. Okay, our next topic about rational function is representing rational functions. So again, the definition of a rational function is written in the form f of x equals p of x all over q of x. Take note that it should be, or the p of x and q of x should be polynomial functions, and q of x should not be equal to 0, or simply the denominator must not be equal to 0. The domain of all values of x where q of x is not equal to 0. So, in this problem, so as you can see, in this problem, we'll just simply represent it using a rational function. So, define a formula for the average cost for every 5 days to stay in the resort f of x. So, let f of x represent the average cost per day and x represent the number in days. Note that 300,000 pesos is a fixed price you need to pay, plus the 700 pesos per day divided by the number of days, x. We will have now f of x equals 300,000 plus 700 times the quantity x all over x. So that is now the representation of this situation or problem using a rational function. Now, using the graph, for every 5 days in the result, create a table of values showing the average cost. So solution, make a table of values with x values at 0, 5, 10, 15, 20. So yung 0, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, these are the number of days. So ang gagawin nyo lang, substitute this x doon sa ating function a while ago, and then you'll get these y values. So from the table, we can observe the average cost of stay decreases as the time increases. We can use a graph to determine if the points of this function follow a curve or a line. So this is definitely a curve. So ito yung x natin, Cartesian plane. This is the x axis and this is the y axis. So ilalagay nyo lang dyan 0, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, and so on. So sa 0 daw, and then, so assume lang natin ito yung mga values in thousands. So pwedeng 5, 10, 15, 20, or 10, 20,000. Okay, tingnan, paki-double check na lang ating graph sa ating module. The picture is better and clearer doon sa ating module. So everything here na example is taken from your module. Now, last topic for this week 2 is the domain and range of a rational function. So we will be talking about the domain and the range. So when we talk about the domain of a function, it is the set of all values that the variable x can take, or simply the values of x. And the range of a function is the set of all values that f of x can take. So again, yung f of x natin can be equal to y. So f of x is the y. Okay? Now, example 1, find the domain and range of the rational function f of x equals 2x minus 3 all over x squared. First, we equate the denominator, x squared is equal to 0, therefore, x equals 0. So, dapat kasi bawal maging 0 ang denominator. So, that means all real numbers, so x, such that x is any element of real numbers wherein x is not equal to 0. So, that will be our domain. Or simply, we can write it this way. X is any element of real numbers such that x is not equal to 0. So that is all values can take the variable x except 0. Because when the denominator becomes 0 again, it will become undefined. Our f of x will become defined. So to find the range, we use f of x equals y so that y equals 2x minus 3 all over x squared. So cross multiplication, yx squared is equal to 2x minus 3. So yx squared minus 2x plus 3 equals 0. So ax squared plus bx plus c to get our real solutions. So use b squared minus 4ac is greater than or equal to 0. So let a is equal to y. So ito yun, di ba? Ax squared minus b of x plus c. So ang inyong a here is the y, the b is equal to negative 2, and the c equals 3. Therefore, negative 2 squared minus 4 times y times 3 is greater than or equal to 0. Okay? 4 minus 12y is greater than or equal to 0. 4 is greater than or equal to 12y, therefore, 1/3 is greater than or equal to y. So, in summary, again, our domain is x is any element of real numbers such that x is not equal to 0, and the range now is y is any element of real numbers such that y is less than or equal to 1/3. Take note kapag inequality, di ba, nilipat natin yung ating, pinagpalit natin yung variable and our constant, mag-change yung ating symbol. So, mababaliktad siya. From greater than, naging less than. Okay, so that is it for an example of domain and range. Mas marami pang example nandyan po sa ating module. Now, this will be your activity, what I can do, field of application, gagawa kayo ng sarili nyong problem. Okay? And then, from that, diba, sabi niya, there are many ways of applying rational functions in our lives. Example of these are average cost, medical dosage, yung kaninang representation natin ng rational function, that's an example of average cost. So, medical dosage, average grade problem, cost of living, and economic production of goods. So, an example of its application can be seen below. So, this is an example. Yan. Example po yan. Part yan ng example. Ang gagawin nyo is this. Create your own or similar real-life situation where rational function is applied. For example, sa inyong family, ang inyong monthly allowance is 5,000 pesos. Magkano ang matatanggap ng bawat family member kung 5,000 ang inyong allowance for food? So, it's like f of x equals 5,000 over x. Diba? Simply, it's a function already, rational function. So, kahit may nagtanong sa akin, in a bond paper daw, pwede bang hindi na? Yes po, pwede na. Yellow paper. Present a problem from field of application. So, it's up to you kung anong gagamitin nyo. Cost of living, average cost, medical dosage, and so on to presentation as illustrated above. So, same as example ang gagawin ninyo po. Kahit hindi na po tayo gumamit ng MS Excel, just use your yellow paper, tapos mag-draw na lang kayo ng parang graph doon or table. Okay, so you will be graded with the following. Total of 100%. And lastly, is all about the assessment. Okay, yan lang po. Just write the letter of the correct answers. So, if when necessary, show your solutions. Kasi may mga questions naman dito na hindi kailangan ng solution. Okay? So, that's it for this week 2 lesson. Now, take note, it always seems impossible until it's done. So, umpisahan para tayo ay may matapos. Kasi kapag hindi tayo nag-umpisa, hindi tayo nag-start, walang matatapos. So, take note, don't forget, comment down yung answer nyo sa week 1 and sa example 2 doon sa solving rational equation and solving rational inequality. Don't forget to comment your name also and your section. It's an option lang po, optional lang po, hindi po required. So, sa mga gusto lang pong mag-try. Okay, so that's all for this week. I hope you learned something from this video.